What would it be like to live and work in the middle of the sea for roughly 4,500 individuals? This is not a hypothetical question, but a daily reality. These individuals are sailors who live and work aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford CVN-78, a nuclear-powered 100,000-ton giant of a ship. The Ford, as sailors refer to it, eclipses all other active naval vessels globally, setting new standards in size and power as of 2024. This extraordinary display of engineering and naval might is considered the world's largest aircraft carrier and the largest warship ever constructed. Given its sheer size, it should not be surprising that this carrier is often called a city at sea. But what is life like for the citizens of this marvelous place? In the words of one of these residents, a petty officer first class in the U.S. Navy, there is not anything like living on an aircraft carrier to understand what makes life on the Ford unique. Let us board this miniature floating city on its epic odyssey. Welcome aboard. As much as we would like to explore the insides of this colossal vessel, immediately, we would be doing it a disservice if we did not first acknowledge its impressive exterior. The Ford is roughly 1,100 feet long and 256 feet wide. This means the ship's deck spans the size of approximately 4 football fields, which are 300 feet long and 160 feet wide. As for the height, the Ford stands at 250 feet. To understand just how tall this is, you only need to know that the Statue of Liberty is about 305 feet long from the heel to the tip of the torch. But just because the Ford is absolutely massive, it does not mean it travels slowly. This remarkable ship can sustain a speed of over 35 miles per hour or 30 knots. This impressive speed places it among the world's fastest aircraft carriers, allowing it to travel across the ocean in a matter of weeks and even outrun most submarines. Now, you might be thinking this kind of might did not come cheap, and you would be absolutely right. The USS Gerald R. Ford construction cost roughly $12.8 billion in materials and labor. And that is not to mention the $4.7 billion spent on research and development. Thanks to these figures, the Ford can add another superlative to its long list of accomplishments, the world's most expensive aircraft carrier. And if the Navy is to be believed, it is also the most adaptable and lethal combat platform in the world. Of course, a ship of this magnitude was not constructed overnight. Construction began on August 11, 2005, and 12 years would pass before the USS Gerald R. Ford was formally commissioned. Former President Donald Trump had the honor of placing the ship in active service on July 22, 2017. If all goes according to plan, the Navy expects the Ford to remain a part of its fleet for 90 years. With this in mind, let us see what sailors living on this ship during its potential 90-year service life might experience. One look inside the Ford is enough for the City at Sea moniker to truly come to life. The living conditions on board are critical for the success of most modern military operations of maritime aviation. So it should not be surprising that the USS Gerald R. Ford is equipped with state-of-the-art facilities to support the well-being and functionality of its inhabitants. Essentially, this floating city has almost all the facilities you would find on land, including a kitchen, a grocery store, a gym, a medical clinic, and numerous recreational areas. These facilities aim to provide sailors with all the amenities they need to live and work comfortably while defending the United States' interests worldwide. After all, this is the only way for them to stay in the best possible physical and mental condition and carry out their duties efficiently. But enough with the prelude. Let us embark on a tour of this maritime marvel. The Ford's entrance leads to a massive hangar bay where you will find aircraft that are not currently used at the hangar bay. You will also find a statue of the ship's namesake, former President Gerald R. Ford. Beyond the obvious symbolism, President Ford's statue might have something to do with luck. You see, President Ford served on an aircraft carrier, the USS Monterey CVL-26, from June 1943 to December 1944. As an assistant navigation officer, athletic officer, he played football at the University of Michigan, an anti-aircraft battery. Officer Ford was credited by his shipmates for saving the USS Monterey during a particularly nasty storm. However, grounded aircraft and lucky statues are not everything you will find in the hangar bay. You might also see an inflated big screen showing the latest NFL game with excited sailors gathered to catch a break from their duties. Besides the hangar on football Sundays and Mondays, sailors can also relax in one of the many recreational facilities available on the Ford well-equipped gyms. Fitness rooms, sports fields, and expansive relaxation areas are just some of these facilities dedicated to promoting the crew's physical and emotional well-being. Sailors can use these facilities to work on their fitness, but also to unwind momentarily, escape the work stress, and connect with fellow crew members. Connecting with other sailors is especially important since life at sea away from your loved ones can be rather isolating. That is why the U.S. Navy made sure to equip the USS Gerald R. Ford with access to various communication tools, including computers and USB ports for hassle-free device charging. This allows sailors to email, video chat, or connect with their loved ones via social media, helping alleviate some of the feelings of loneliness. However, there are facilities where sailors certainly will not feel lonely, or at least alone. The ship's sleeping areas. These areas are lined with bunk beds tightly arranged to optimize the limited space. Now, to be fair, the sleeping quarters at the Ford have been redesigned to include fewer beds and, in turn, fewer people in each room. These quarters do not include more than 86 people, which is a substantial departure from the sleeping units of Nimitz-class carriers that accommodate up to 200 sailors. But let us be honest, that might still feel like 80 people more than should be in the same room to some sailors. Each of these crowded sleeping areas, or berthing units, as they are often called, features an adjoining bathroom. Interestingly, bathrooms are among the most talked about facilities at the USS Gerald R. Ford. Why? Because the Ford is the first and only U.S. Navy ship to be entirely outfitted with gender-neutral bathrooms. In other words, there are no urinals on the USS Gerald R. Ford, believe it or not. This change has stirred up quite a heated debate among sailors and experts. Some of them salute this departure from dedicating entire areas to one gender and praise the convenience and flexibility that come with it. With these bathrooms, there is no need to change the ship's infrastructure when its crew makeup changes, although women make up only 18% of the Navy. This move is seen as a step toward a more inclusive environment. However, the opposing side focuses on the functionality and sanitation of these facilities. The sit-down toilets that can be found on the Ford are said to be less sanitary than traditional urinals. In addition, the stalls around these toilets take up more space, while a urinal requires around 1,500 square inches of space. A stall calls for more than double, at least 3,300 square inches. It might also interest you to know that every flush on the Ford uses water from the surrounding sea, a testament to the ship's self-sufficiency. The same desalinated seawater is also used for drinking. Speaking of drinking, let us take a peek into the Ford's cafeteria. The first thing you will notice is the overarching theme, the Big Ten Conference. If you are not a football fan, this is the oldest Division I collegiate athletic conference in the U.S. This theme is quite on par with President Ford's history as a collegiate football player and fan. After having a cup of coffee or a drink of their choice, sailors can go to one of the mess halls to enjoy breakfast, according to a set schedule typically starting at 6 a.m. Of course, the same strict schedule applies to lunch and dinner. But to understand how thousands of sailors can be fed nutritious meals daily, we must visit arguably the most impressive facility on the Ford, the kitchen first things first. Let us make sure we use the correct term. The ship's kitchen is referred to as a galley. Aircraft carriers typically include more than one galley, and the Ford is no different. This ship has 2 operational galleys where all the cooking is done, but just how much cooking are we talking about? Let us say there are 4,500 crew members on the Ford at a time. This means that 13,500 meals must be prepared daily. That is, if we are only counting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But what about midnight rations, or mid-rats for short? These unofficial fourth meals of the day are sailors' favorites and bring the total meal tally up to 18,000. This figure is noteworthy in and of itself, but it becomes mind-blowing when you consider only about 100 sailors participate in making these meals. Talk about a culinary miracle. Of course, there is no magic in the galleys. only precision efficiency and a well-orchestrated culinary operation. This operation is orchestrated by culinary specialists who run the galleys. Each specialist has their own crew consisting of ship cooks, butchers, bakers, unrated sailors, and a chief commissary steward. This steward is responsible for distributing the food to the cooks and assisting the head chef in the meal planning process. Considering the sheer amount of food prepared daily, it should not be surprising that these cooks work with some enormous equipment. For instance, the station for butchering meat features bandsaws that can slice through large cuts of meat without hassle. Similarly, in the bakery, you will find a giant dough mixer with a capacity of 60 pounds. The galleys are also equipped with industrial ovens, deep fat fryers, grills, and huge machines for steaming vegetables, since large, huge, giant, and enormous seem to be keywords here. You probably will not be surprised by the massive amounts of food that get consumed aboard an aircraft carrier during a single day. Crew members can eat as much as 1,600 pounds of chicken, 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, and 30 cases of cereal. These insane amounts beg the question, how can the culinary crew pull these meals off? Well, it all starts with proper planning. Meals are planned 15 days in advance once a week. Both fresh and dry commodities are replenished to keep up with this demanding schedule. A demanding schedule is also what the ship's culinary specialists adhere to. They get up at 3 a.m. every morning to ensure the breakfast is ready by 6. However, the hard labor does not stop after 6, as every minute in the galley must be productive to keep up with the demand for the remaining daily meals. Plus, cooks make it a point to prepare each meal to a high standard, ensuring that sailors can enjoy delicious food, even when they are thousands of miles away from home. To keep the morale high, cooks will also introduce some variety and creativity into the meal schedule. That is why it is not uncommon for this schedule to feature a Taco Tuesday or meals using regional delicacies like Greek feta cheese and Mongolian barbecue. Although every day aboard the Ford is a feast, sailors will get an extra special treat on their birthday to celebrate this day. Sailors are typically given a lunch featuring a lobster or prime rib main course. These courses are served on a tablecloth and paired with wine and pleasant background music for a memorable dining experience. But why is so much attention paid to the food on the Ford beyond the obvious health-related reasons? Well, food has historically been one of the most critical aspects of service in the U.S. Navy. Early on, a good meal was even one of the most important factors in recruitment. At the time, food was not as nearly diverse as it is today. So sailors wanted to guarantee they would be well fed aboard the ship. After all, the sailors in charge of more labor-intensive tasks can burn over 4,000 calories daily. So nutritious and satisfying meals are crucial for their energy and well-being. To further emphasize the importance of sailors' well-being, the Ford also features comprehensive health care and welfare facilities. The Central Medical Facility is often referred to as the sick bay, and it serves as a hub for medical care on the USS Gerald R. Ford here. Sailors can seek medical help, whether preventative or emergency care, routine checkups, or medication management. They will receive that help from qualified medical personnel, including doctors, nurses, and medical technicians available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Since their mental health is as important as physical, sailors also have access to counselors and spiritual care providers aboard the Ford. These individuals try to help sailors overcome any psychological or emotional challenges they might encounter during deployment. Their professional and, more importantly, confidential services range from one-on-one conversations to group sessions, helping sailors cope with stress, the emotional and physical strain of life at sea, and separation from their loved ones. The goal of these services and facilities, like all the others mentioned so far in this video, is to make sailors feel as supported as possible.